Hello and welcome to a special 4-year anniversary episode of This Week Explain. This is one of 2 special episodes that you guys are going to get. As you've heard, we talked about this last week. We will not be putting out a current events geopolitical intelligence podcast. What we are going to do is celebrate 4 years of being a podcast and of you guys enjoying this podcast. A special thanks to everyone. So we've compiled a few of the best moments that I could find throughout our what was once called Insightful Inquiries, which then became Beyond This Week, and has now turned into whenever I have time to do an interview with some great guests. So we've clipped out a few of the best moments from that, and that's what you were going to hear. It's not too long. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you guys have a wonderful week and a wonderful start to the month of October. So, without further ado, here is a special 4-year episode of Beyond This Week.
And Hamas has been very capable of this, and they've got their own disinformation, operation that pushes out what they want to push, and then kind of works to suppress pro-Israel narratives. The Iranian regime does the same. They're very active in that, and they direct most of what Hamas does. Look, Hamas wouldn't exist without Iran. But the answer is that also, yes, the Russian, apparatus is doing this. The Chinese regime's apparatus is doing it through their incredibly well-resourced disinformation operations. So they're all doing it. They're all pushing the same narrative because it ultimately, comes back to U.S. support for Israel, and anything we can do to denigrate Israel and the U.S. That's from the Russian perspective, Chinese perspective, the Iranian and their toadies, the Hamas. That's a good thing. So they're all in there, right, pushing and amplifying messages and supporting anti-Israel messages. They're all in there pushing and suppressing pro-Israeli comment. And people, they know what they're going to get, right? All those people operating those disinformation campaigns, no, they've got a bottomless well of useful idiots out there, and who are just looking for a reason to go out on the street. Some of them just love a good time and want to get out and protest. Right. A lot of them couldn't find Gaza on a map. If you opened it up to a map of Gaza, circled it with a Sharpie. They know what they're going to get. Again, I think they're probably surprised at the speed with which it turned, but they knew they could anticipate, and they knew they could count on that happening.
Yeah. So then, from a Mike Baker perspective, what's the end game? Where do you see this ending, if at all?
Well, it'll end, right? This conflict. And by that I mean we're not going to. It's not going to end with a peace deal and happiness and sunshine in the region. But the conflict, as we know it right now, will end because at a certain point, Israel, look, they're balancing their operational requirements and sort of the knowledge that this can't stand, right? They can't allow it to happen again, certainly. So they're balancing their operational requirements and their tactics with what the international pressure, to stop at some point. And again, they have to make that decision. But they're calculating that now, even as we speak. At what point have we degraded them enough, right? And there's a lot of moving parts there because it's not just, from a tactical perspective, have we taken care of the Hamas command structure, and have we killed enough of their fighters? Have we denigrated them so badly? But they've also got to worry about what backfills it, right? And right. The answer is not the UN. UN's completely useless.
Well, the UN's come out pretty much pro-Palestine.
Yeah,
they're in agreement that basically Israel should not exist, and Palestine should the Palestinians should take over.
Well, look, Iran now chairs a UN human rights forum. I mean, think about it.
Not an oxymoron.
Think about how insane that is, right? I mean,
yeah,
actually insane that Putin has waged war on Ukraine and has just set up this meat grinder out in Ukraine, and Russia still sits on the permanent Security Council, right? I mean, there's a lot.
I believe they were president of the Security Council as they were
in a position, and yet they don't actually have to do that. They could say, we're putting you on hiatus right now.
Right.
But the fact that they're okay with Iran sharing a human rights forum of all things, right, is insane. And that's kind of all you need to know about the UN. So the UN, the idea that they would be the ones who govern Gaza or somehow, sane people look at that and go, well, that's not going to work, right?
Also, if that high-level decision maker, and that's what intelligence is for, right? It's for the decision makers to make quality decisions, and that's not a CEO, just a CEO or a government leader. You as a parent, or you as even a high school student or college student or whatever, you have to make decisions.
A random traveler.
Yeah, if you're traveling, that's what I'm trying to fill is people traveling, especially to austere locations. What am I going to interact with, and what should I be careful doing? That's really what I try to get out there in these big. So if you're a big decision maker and you're getting your decisions from OSINT accounts, even like mine, just reading it on Twitter, you failed somewhere. That should absolutely not be happening. And most Fortune 500 companies will have a team of intelligence analysts breaking it all down for them anyway. So
that's my first job.
Yeah.
That was my first job out of the army. That's what I did. I watched the invasion of Ukraine live because I was on shift, and my limited ability to speak Russian was like, oh, here's some words I know. They're not positive. Putin is not saying good things right now.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah. Sitting there by myself in this sock, just watching it like ramp up, like with all the high altitude bombers going up and like the bomber command line turned on, and then all the cameras cutting at the border, and it was like the last image of one of the cameras was Ukrainian running, and it was like, whoa. And we used data miner as our main like source to collect.
I still use data miner. Yeah,
it's a great source.
Oh, I guess I shouldn't give my sources up, but yeah, that's one of my sources.
It's just Twitter, and some other stuff. But
yeah, it's got some other things in the background going, but yeah, it's pretty much X.
But yeah, like watching that like play out, that was pretty crazy. But yeah, if you are legally responsible for travelers in austere locations, you don't want to be relying on public information, because
you better have some.
If I'm talking about it on Twitter, it's too late.
Yeah. And as a leader, if you see it on Twitter and you haven't found out about it, that's the first place you go is to your analytical team and go, why was I not made aware of this?
Could be because it's wrong.
Could be. Yeah.
Your analysts might have looked at it and gone, it's not true. Yeah.
And typically what we don't do is, and I really try to help people understand that, and clients, I'll teach them or help them understand the way that I do it, which is basically, I don't go 0% or 100% unless you've absolutely verified. But if we're working in like predictive analysis, I'm not going to go, oh yeah, I'm 100%. Even with the invasion of Ukraine, I was at probable. I had people hit me up in February and I was like 99% chance. Like, so there's a chance it won't happen. There's a chance anything won't happen. There's a chance this whole world collapses tomorrow. So I can't predict with absolute certainty. And then when I see bullshit and know it's bullshit, and people are like, so that's a 0% chance? Like, there is no 0%. Like, anything can happen.
My boss at that, in the SOC job, he was a former Armored Corps colonel. And I think I was one of 3 ex-military people and the only ex-military intel dudes. And he used to constantly hound me. He's like, you guys never say anything for certain. You're always with your assessments. He's like, no, I even like almost certain is 95%. You'll leave yourself some wiggle room for but he used to always get on to me about it. He's like, nothing. You were never just like.
I've sat in the talk and, had a team come off of a compound, come back and look at me and go, don't ever tell me there are no weapons before we get out there. And he had like 3 or 4 different weapons. And that was just like, first of all, I apologize for not helping you understand my analysis, which is never 0. It's if you had come out before going outside the wire and asked me if there were weapons, I would say, and I did say, I haven't seen any, but knowing where we are and understanding the location you're going to, I guarantee, I bet there is a weapons cache or at least one weapon. And the weapon he brought in was some like old manufactured farming gun that was used to, kill an animal or something.
Wolves and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't an AK or anything like that. I was like, I will never tell you no, but I'll also never tell you I'm certain.
That is quite. Yeah.
This is from my own experience. About 85-90% of the FBI agents that I worked with lean politically conservative. And I think you see that in the military as well. It's just part and parcel. It's part and parcel of who it is that applies to the military and the FBI in the first place. And it's also part and parcel of just the things that you go through that kind of keep you in a little bit more of a conservative lean certainly in terms of defense and national security issues. So to me, the notion that the FBI has all of a sudden turned into this partisan political puppet for the Democrat Party is just silly. What I do think is that we've had some missteps and people have seized upon them and have built them into far, far more than they actually are. But I also think, and this is something that I've talked about on a couple of podcasts I've been on in terms of the temperature of political discourse and using things like the FBI as a political football. And I draw an analogy. I grew up playing sports, lots and lots and lots of sports, football, baseball, basketball, golf. I was a competitive skier for a while, and a lot of sports from high school up to I actually played a little bit of college football, not very much. And by the way, I wasn't very good. But one thing that playing competitive sports my entire youth taught me was it taught me how to lose without blaming somebody else all the time. Sometimes you just freaking lose. You go out and you put your best foot forward and your team just didn't have it that day. It doesn't mean somebody was out to get you. It doesn't mean that there's a vast right-wing or left-wing conspiracy. It doesn't mean it's the media's fault. It means you lost. And I think that, I don't know, man, maybe it started with participation trophies back in the 90s. I don't know. But I think we've lost our ability as a society to, own our shit.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, man, I lost. Okay, now I'll try to do better next time. No, it was a fake election. It was fake news. It was rigged. It was this, that, and the other. And if you can throw the FBI in there and try to make the FBI look like they're part of the witch hunt, then yeah, all the better. Helps your case a little bit, at least with people who aren't prone to critical thinking.
I agree 100%. This is a conversation I had with former candidate Andrew Yang. I don't know if you know Andrew Yang at all, but I told him that there is this sentiment within, and I come from the intelligence community, so a lot of what I say is about the intelligence community, and I have definitely seen this shift since 2019, 2020 against the intelligence community. And I say this to everybody I talk to, and I'll say it here. Everybody who's listening has already heard me say this. There are legitimate reasons to have this anti-sentiment to it. There are certain leaders who have politicized their positions within the intelligence community. I think you have just said the same thing about certain members of the FBI who have politicized their positions. We're not going to name anybody there, but hey, listen, it's 1-2% maybe that have politicized their positions. And that's what gets broadcast, and that's what gets put out. I don't know. What's the solution for that?
I think the solution, in my opinion, and I think that we got to start reporting more of the safe landings, and that they don't report the safe landings at JFK, only the crashes. And I think that we have to have a better optic to the public, and I think that they need to know, rather than Chris Wray going and defending the FBI, yet again when something else goes wrong,
right,
in front of Congress. I think we got to usher the good in there with the bad.
And since we're getting into the 2025, what do you think is going to happen with TikTok?
It seems like TikTok, they tried to appeal their decision. I think that was on December 13th, I think, December 12th or 13th. Their appeal got denied by a federal court. And they have to find a buyer before now and January 19th. Now, President Trump said that he wants to keep TikTok around, but that's kind of a congressional decision. And, if you're a congressman, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or not. It doesn't matter if you support President Trump. At the end of the day, you are accountable to your constituents. You want to get elected again. And so if you vote for banning TikTok and then all of a sudden you flip and decide, all right, well, I'm going to reverse my decision, you're going to have to answer why. And there's going to be you want to be the guy that gets attack ads? Mike Flutily Dupe wants China to influence your children.
And that's the ad, right?
Yeah. So that's a tough pill to swallow. And is President Trump going to help you then? And look at,
we can say, well, the coming generation, they love TikTok. I've got a 20, 18, and 16-year-old. They absolutely hate TikTok now.
Right.
They really do, because it's so influencing. And there's mental health issues, and they see it. And they're like, I'm not on it anymore. Because I brought it up. I've said, hey, so what do you guys think? This could get taken out. What's your life going to be like? And they're like, it's going to be so much better if it just gets deleted, because it's an addiction. I can't stop it. But if it gets deleted, that's fine. And then there's the whole free speech aspect to it, right? I've had a commentary with a group for free speech who has said they want to stop the ban of TikTok because it is a free speech ban. And I'm trying to tell people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would absolutely love to hear a different side of this, that I think it's not a free speech issue, because you can go anywhere and put your voice out. It's just TikTok, we can't allow the CCP to promote certain things that then have a negative aspect to freedom, to the United States, to the Western world, really.
Well, I think the difference is that you're right, that this is something that the Chinese government has control over. And when it comes to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you can haul those executives in front of Congress and say, tell me why you allowed this to happen, right? Now, freedom of speech, it really means the government can't constrain your speech. It's not the case with private corporations. And it's certainly not the case of freedom of consequences, right? Like I can say things right now that would not only get you demonetized, but that would get me canceled, right? A whole string of words. So I have free speech. The government can't punish me for saying those things, but people can say, you know what? I don't like Ryan McBeth. I don't like those views that he just said. I'm not going to watch him anymore, right? So freedom of speech doesn't mean consequence free. And the argument of, well, you can just go someplace else. I mean, I know that there was, I think it was in New Jersey, a town banned strip clubs. And the town's argument was, well, you can just go someplace else in town. You can just go to a different town. And
a freedom of expression kind of thing.
Well, yeah, pole dancing could be considered freedom of expression. This is how I express, my dancing is how I express whatever, my feelings or whatever. So that is a reasonable thing to believe. And saying, well, you can just go to some other town. Well, you're obviously saying that they have a right to do this. They just don't have a right to do it your town. Oh, that argument was kind of thrown out by, I believe, the New Jersey Supreme Court. And, you might be able to control, like, all right, you have to have a strip club in this certain location, but you can't ban them altogether. The saying, oh, you can just go to a different platform. Well, that's kind of a tough one too. The big issue is that TikTok is essentially owned by a foreign company, and those executives are not held accountable.
So, like,
since I was more stunts, I didn't get like the whole script. I knew the gist. They're like, hey, it's about Civil War. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And I see the writing on the wall in the real world. I was like, I was all in, like Mr. Conspiracy, like, I'm all in. But it wasn't until I saw the movie where I was like, this is a road trip movie. I think we might have texted, and it's not a war movie. It's a road trip movie. And the trailer, and I'm saying this as a fan, I loved it either way, but I was caught off guard because I was expecting a war movie, not a road trip movie with a war in the background.
I felt the exact same way, obviously, when we had this conversation. But, I felt I was going into it not hoping. So I was going into it expecting it to be a war movie.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have clear, this is the bad guy, here's the good guy, and now they're warring against each other. What I really appreciated about the film was there was no good guy, bad guy.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of humans who were fed up versus a bunch of humans who wanted the status quo. And this is all through the lens of war journalism.
Yeah. Which is technically fictional war journalism is probably not what you crap on. Because it's more ideal.
Right. Yeah. So it's like journalism, I'll crap on it all day because of the bias on both sides of it. And but as far as like war journalism, and I've sat with these guys, and I've been in Humvees with these guys, and they do exactly, minus one or two who are over the top and they just want to get a report in. But most of the time they will do anything that we do as soldiers besides firing back.
Yeah. It's almost like having an interpreter. They're glued to your hip.
Right. And that is the exact thing.
Yeah. Actually, I think some of our Terps had rifles. Now that I think about it, we didn't give it to them. Yeah. But we couldn't take it away from them at the same time.
Now that is exactly, you just framed that perfectly. Yeah. We didn't give that to you, but you can keep it on you because we know if things happen.
They better have a second barrel in that doorway, even if it's not ours.
But like the way that I describe what I like about the war journalism in this is, and this isn't a spoiler because it's in the it's in the previews to the movie, when they go into that shop, right?
Oh yeah.
In West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And the male journalist is like, hey, don't you know there's like a pretty big civil war going on right now?
Yeah.
And she says, and I think we have these conversations with some people today, where she says, yeah, we just kind of try to stay out of all of this, and that's what the news tells us to do, and so we think it's just safer that way.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you hear that and you want to laugh and like, you're crazy. But it pans back to his face, like it goes back to him, and throughout the scene, he does such an incredible job. And I'm sorry I forgot the name of the main male character.
Yeah.
But he does such an incredible job of portraying a journalist that just heard that and felt jealous of what she said.
Yeah.
He was jealous that she could feel that way in a civil war, and he couldn't. Yeah. He legitimately could not, because he's trying to give the news to people.
Yeah, he has to be that was, and I'm beating this to death, but I was just telling somebody prior to us talking, like that was what threw me off. Was I assumed Civil War movie. It's literally called Civil War. So I was assuming Platoon, modern times, with war. But the brilliant thing, and I even said this disclaimer, you always know when somebody's on a late show and they're definitely being politically correct because they don't want to throw a co-star under the bus. They don't want to say their movie was crap. I'm too low to have to do that. I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, so I don't have to like lie to make this. But I genuinely loved the fact I would have wanted, I loved war movies, so I was going in expecting that, but I actually was pleasantly surprised. It took me about a week afterwards to accept it, but I was actually pleasantly surprised with how they used the road trip movie, the road trip genre, to kind of this is so artsy fartsy, to basically allow it to be more receptive to all spectrums, left, right, blue, red, whatever you want to say. But it didn't come across, like you said, one-sided. It didn't come, like, if you went in the whole thing about, like, if somebody says don't think about a pink elephant, you're going to think about a pink elephant. If somebody goes in and goes Nick Offerman's Trump, you're going to automatically go in there going, oh.
So they definitely have gone to college. They know investigations and research, and they can do all of those things, but it takes an analytical mind to make an analytical assessment, and not everybody can do that. And on some things, I can't do it. Like, I'm not a financial, we'll keep going into this is the finance. I'm not a finance bro. I can't do financial analysis. I can see the pattern if money's going back and forth to be the guy that's like, oh, that's an incredible amount of money, or this is an exact amount of money that is to pay for this, which is probably meaning this is going to a terrorist organization to get a MiG or something like that, and then just use that. I can't do that.
My friend who's an auditor said numbers should never be whole in bank transactions.
Oh, wow.
If they're exact numbers, that's the ones they look into. So if you're going to do any shady payments, don't make them whole.
There we go. I'm going to clip this out and put it on YouTube to help some people out.
As what he said, he's like, yeah, as an auditor, the thing you look for is just like straight numbers, because in finance, no numbers are like perfect. They're all to the like random cents and dollars.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
Just
especially
thinking about it now,
currency.
It makes sense, and that's the analytical process, is just to have a logical conclusion to it. So when somebody says, round numbers are not good in financial transactions, you start thinking, yeah, when was the last time I had a round number from work or, somebody paying me, especially as
soon as the
IRS and no tax.
Yeah. As soon as you introduce tax or currency exchange,
there's no way.
1 in a million shot.
And that's what you try to do. You're looking at something and going, and that's why I don't go 0%, because look at something. Assad's plane was shot down by Russia and he died in the plane crash. Well, it's not 0% that happened, but it is highly unlikely, and we should probably look into that. And very quickly, we all understood that didn't happen. And he was from Moscow.
Pop that little head up in Moscow. And one of his 14 multi-million-dollar properties that he owns there.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Can't imagine where Syrian people's money went.
Yeah, I can't imagine. So that was something that we saw right after the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So we made the push and we took over the U.S. military with NATO forces, and took over all of those compounds that Saddam had. And we had the Iraqis coming on to work on the bases and stuff like that. And I know this is being in Baghdad and being part of Camp Liberty, Camp Victory, all those areas which were Saddam had compounds there. And he had these vast lakes, man-made lakes filled with water. And the people were just like they're doing here in California and stuff, not able to use their water. There was a drought. Farmers were dying. Their crops were all dying out because they had no water. And the Saddam regime told them, well, look, it's a drought, and this is just what everybody's going to have to deal with. And when they came on the base, they asked us, where did you get all that water to fill these lakes up with? And it was like, Saddam Hussein did that. Uday and Qusay did that. Like, we didn't do that. And their mind was just blown. They did not understand that so much of their life was ruined because of one man and his family controlling an entire country. And now they're seeing it with Assad.
So what the hell do you expect?
Yeah, right. And so then that gets us to the question of, what the hell is Putin doing? And I know that's sort of like tongue in cheek, because we all know what he's doing, but he's got this thing where he's being Putin, right? And he's saying, yeah, I want a ceasefire, or I want peace. I want true peace because I want our soldiers to stop dying. And then he conscripts hundreds of thousands of new Russians over the next few years, and just continues, firing pop shots at Ukraine. And
yeah,
so
Putin's not interested in peace. He doesn't give a rat's ass about the lives of the soldiers that are, being thrown out front of the cannons on the battlefield. That's not his game plan, right? He's been pretty clear about that. It's been interesting that for a period of time, whether they believed it or not, I don't know, but they certainly acted as if they believed it. And maybe that was a negotiating tactic, but the White House, acting as if Putin wants peace and, he's going to come to the negotiating table if we could just get the Ukrainians on board, right? So there was a strange narrative for a short while in the recent past where people, because of what was coming out of the White House, again, could have been a tactical plan on their part, to do that. But there was people out there genuinely thinking, well, Zelensky's the problem here. Yeah, he's just a roadblock to peace, because if he would agree, then Putin, of course, would want to sit down and negotiate. What are we talking about? Right? I mean, what nonsense. So now it's starting to come out, and it looks like President Trump is rightly so getting pissed off. But, they should have anticipated this to begin with, right? Putin is making incremental advances on the battlefield. He believes he's in the driver's seat. He's watching the U.S. slowly back away from Ukraine. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, why would he be so desperate to come to the negotiating table? And as you pointed out, he's just put out an order to conscript 160,000 more troops, right? Not typically something you do if you're anticipating, a ceasefire and a peace settlement. So, and one of the Kremlin advisors just came out with, what I think is probably the clearest statement of Putin's intentions, which is, he was caught saying, well, look, while the U.S. is backing away from Ukraine and while we're winning on the battlefield, why would we stop now? So
absolutely. Why would you stop when you could maybe get Kyiv without doing anything more?
Yeah,
you could.
Yeah, if you just, I mean, if this thing were to drag on, look, and everybody agrees for the most part, Russia's economy is having serious issues, and yes, he's got a variety of problems in terms of manpower, although he's got a 3-to-1 manpower advantage on Ukraine. So he's getting support from China. The Chinese regime support has been critical to keeping that war machine moving. He's got support from Iran and certainly from North Korea, not only munitions, but troops. So I think we need to look at this in a different way than the way it's been framed. So, if that's the case, and we believe that the Russian economy is the weak link here, then we should be doing everything possible to squeeze that economy, right? And that means we've got to figure out a way to actually shut off money going to Putin through his energy sector. And the tough part there is that the EU and the US are still buying Russian, oil and gas. It gets refined elsewhere, oftentimes from India, but we're buying it. So we might want to rethink that strategy.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that a lot of gas, natural gas, oil, comes from Russia, and we're still buying it. The U.S. is still buying it, no matter how many sanctions we put. And that's a big joke on my podcast on, sanctions. Sanctions don't do anything unless you're actually going to hold people's feet to the fire. It's really not doing anything. We saw that. So what Trump very famously now told Zelensky he's not holding any cards, right?
Right.
He doesn't have any of the cards. What cards does the U.S. have against Putin to say, you need to agree to this right now?
Yeah. I mean, really, it's economic leverage is about the only thing that the U.S. has at this stage, unless they intend to, significantly upgun, the Ukrainian military, right? I mean, if it's so you've those are the options on the old decision tree,